Hello again and welcome to another Mage Tower guide. This time we're going to be talking about the Vengence Demon Hunter. So as always, we're going to start off with our consumables. We're going to need flasks of the 7th demon, potions of prolonged power, bear tartar as our food, and drums of the mountain or fury. Either one, it doesn't matter. And if you want to use an augment rune, you can, but I did not. As far as the talents, this is the exact setup that I would suggest you go with. There's pretty much not too much leeway here. The Abyssal Strike plus Flame Crash combo is just really good for keeping up dot damage at all times. Fallout is just, the other two talents are very good anyway, so Fallout's pretty much the best one there. More healing, more damage with Spirit Bomb. Fracture is by far the best talent kind of here. I mean, Last Resort is really good too, but Fracture does more damage than Shear does. It does more damage than Soul Cleave. So it's going to be kind of your primary damage ability whenever you have pain, especially in phase 1, also into phase 2 for that matter too. It's just a really good ability. It provides healing with getting more soul fragments, as well as it just does a lot of damage. Quickening Seals is definitely the best one for this tier. I'll put up a macro if you want it for concentrated seals. If you want to have like another button that does the exact same thing minus it lasting for 2 extra seconds, it won't do that. But if you want a macro that just puts it directly at your feet but still get the benefits of quickening runes, I'll have that up there right now. And then Spirit Bomb just gives you the best consistent AoE. Like Fell Devastation is a really cool ability and it does a lot of damage, but the 1 minute cooldown is really prohibitive for this. And then Last Resort is obviously very crucial for the last stage. But other than that, that's pretty much it. One other thing I wanted to point out is that abilities like Sigil of Silence, Sigil of Misery, Empower Wards, and Imprison are very good abilities for controlling phase 1. You don't really see me doing it too much, which is why I wanted to mention it first. But those abilities are just really good for stopping casts of Mind Rend when you need to, if you have high stacks of the Decay, or when he's casting Drain Life. So I didn't make too good of usage of that, but I never felt like I was in truly any real danger. But just for your own attempts, feel free to use those. Now before we get into the kill video, let's talk about the fight really quickly just so we understand all of the mechanics. So the first person you're going to be fighting is Inquisitor Varus, who has at his feet what looks like a Death and Decay. This will put a stacking debuff on you that will decrease your maximum health by a percentage with each stack. So you're only going to be wanting to take about 4 or 5 of these stacks before you go out, but you can take more, probably up to 7 or 8 if you have a plan on dealing with it further. His first ability that he actually has is called Mind Rend. This is just a big burst of damage that will need to be handled. And his second ability is Drain Life. This will need to be interrupted, but it's okay if it goes off for a second or two. It's not really the end of the world. We have 3 adds we're going to need to deal with, the first of which being Tormenting Eyes. These guys have an ability called Inquisitive Stare that you're going to need to be looking directly back at when they finish the cast, otherwise they will knock you back. You can kill these guys off really quickly, and it really helps to get soul fragments as well as just keeping the area clear. The second ad we're going to need to deal with are called Nether Horrors. 4 of these guys are going to spawn in the corners of the room and then run at either you or Velen. It just depends on who has aggro. You're going to want to pick these guys up right away as they have an ability called Nether Storm. When they finish casting this ability, it will do a large amount of AoE damage that if it's on top of Velen, it will cut him in half. So you're going to have to make sure that you're dealing with this by pulling him away or using one of the healing orbs. And the last adds we're going to need to deal with are called Smoldering Infernals. These guys are going to spawn throughout the fight and have 2 abilities. The first one is called Smash, which will create a line on the ground that you'll need to get out of, otherwise you'll get knocked back extremely far. The next ability they have is called Fell Resonance. This is that green pulse that you're seeing coming out of the Infernal right now. Every time he does this, he will do a large amount of damage in an AoE around him, as well as he will reduce his own health by 10% with each cast, down to 20% health. At 20% health, he'll shrink down in size, take 100% additional damage, and his knockbacks won't be nearly as potent. And finally we have High Lord Cruel, who has 3 abilities of his own. The first of which is called Annihilate. This is his big burst damage, and this is what we're going to be needing to use our defensive cooldowns on, as it does more damage to you with each hit of this that you take. His second ability is called Twisted Reflection. This needs to be interrupted, otherwise if he does get this cast off, he will put a debuff on you where each time he hits you, he will recover 5% of his max health. You really don't want this to go off, but if it does, you can clear it off you with a healing orb. The last ability he has is called Nether Stomp, where he will jump to you wherever you are and then leave a puddle of green on the ground. It does an insane amount of ticking damage for as long as you stand in it. Make sure you're getting out of this right away. And finally, there's also these lines that will appear. They're called beam cutters. They don't really do a lot of damage, but they do push you back. I did find on this class specifically that you can almost completely ignore them, and they don't really hinder you too much at all. So that's pretty much the fight, and here is how I did it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to pre-pot, and then I'm going to jump in and try to do as much damage to Varus as I can using all of my cooldowns. So I've got Fiery Brand, I'm going to use Metamorphosis, I'm going to use Soul Carver, and obviously my Unused Trinket as well, just trying to get in as much damage as I can on him. And right now it's basically just going back and forth between Shear and Fracture. Here I'm going to take kind of a bad angle going into that eye, so I get knocked back. I'm at 7 stacks. I use Sigil of Misery on Varus to give my stacks a chance to fall off, which they do. And then here I get knocked back one more time. Again, kind of sloppy at the beginning and at the end, but that's okay. Clear up those guys, clear up the space a little bit, and then get back to Varus. Every time that you don't have a debuff and you have some downtime, or just in general, you want to be on Varus. You want to be out of this phase as quickly as possible. So whenever you don't have a debuff, you want to be going back in there and getting on Varus. Going to interrupt this cast, and then I'm going to group these guys up around the Infernal, getting out that dot damage on all of them, and then right as Nether Storm goes off, I'm going to interrupt it with a healing orb, as you can see how much damage that does to Velen, and then I'm going to go right back in on Varus. You can see one of the ads is still up. It's really not a big deal if it's just 1 or 2, it's mainly just if all 4 are up. Getting out of the circle, interrupting the cast, and then clearing up some of these eyes. They spawn pretty quickly, so... And then right back in as soon as those stacks fell off, trying to push in as much damage as possible. So going back out now to get some of these ads, grouping them back up right next to the healing orb. And then right before it goes off, or right as it goes off, I'm going to take the orb and finish killing these guys. So here I'm just going to take these guys back into Varus and finish them off. Try to get as much damage to Varus. Again, just kind of rinse and repeat at this point, dodging the smashes. So here I see that I know that there's ads going to be coming back out, and I could have phased them right there, but I really don't want to be going into the cruel phase with a whole bunch of ads up. So I decided to get off of them really quickly and finish killing off these ads first. Again, another small knockback. And now that there's just 2 of them, I'm going to go back in on Varus and phase him into Cruel. So I'm going to use my drums, I'm going to use my second potion, and try to get in as much damage as I can. I'm not going to use Fiery Brand because I'm going to need to use it later. Now right here I'm going to make a huge mistake, as he does Nether Stomp, he does Twisted Reflection, and does Annihilate all back to back. I just really wasn't ready for those abilities to all be stacking, and I had a really hard time getting out of the Nether Stomp, so I've already used my last resort right away, which could be bad, but we're going to make it work here. So getting these ads up together, and as soon as the Nether Storm goes off, using the orb, and then getting right back to Cruel. So here's how you should be handling Annihilates, is with Fire Brand, and this is how you should be using Infernal Strike as well to get out of those the Nether Stomp puddles. The Infernal Strike is extremely good for getting out of them and really trivializes it. But it's also really good for damage, so it's kind of a trade-off there, and you see right there I didn't have one up, so I had to kind of jump my way out. Again, just kind of cleaving. Here's one more Annihilate. This was Metamorphosis and Demon Spikes, but you can see it went off on Corvus. Now, that was the one I had planned on. That was the cooldown rotation, so I would have been fine. I had high health. So I didn't just completely get lucky. It wouldn't have affected me too much. But then right after that, it was enough damage to finish him off pretty quickly after that third Annihilate. So if you have any kind of better gear than what I did at 905, which I'm sure you do, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. This one, despite how dirty this kill was, I know that it wasn't the prettiest thing, but it does kind of show you that you can play, you know, definitely not perfect and still be able to get this thing done. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. But outside of that, that's really pretty much it. And that concludes the tank challenges. I'm done with all 6 of them, and I'll probably have a video up at some point kind of going over them all, just kind of talking about them, how I felt about them. Were they fun? Were they challenging? And just kind of going from there. But yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much it. So I hope to see you guys next time.